Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We will be looking at this. What is this? This is the drama. This is the play. This is the tragedy, Romeo and Juliet. We'll be talking about Act Two, the most famous of probably all, where we have Juliet and Romeo. And it was just dawning on me the idea that he looks up to her and he's aiming up. And I love that idea. So let's get into this. You guys are going to take some notes, right? Who's to blame? Act Two. I might start you off with a Benvolio quote, maybe a Romeo quote, and but I will ask that you guys do several more quotes than what I will put on this piece of notepaper as examples. All right, several more. So heads up in class. All right, let's get into it. Act Two. We got the boys and the end of the party. It is time to call it. But what you see here is Romeo is sort of in doubt, and will he turn back or will he go find the center of his life out? And then you get this great description. So here's this description. Romeo ditches his friends, and it's stage direction. So that's pretty fascinating. The other thing you get just below that here in line 3 is Benvolio loses his cousin, right? His wingman, his responsibility. In fact, it is Benvolio's responsibility because it's his idea, his advice to take Romeo to the party. And yet here he is losing his buddy. So how would these quotes look like, right? Well, stage direction's a little different. Square brackets to add information. This is for grammar reasons, so I did another square bracket. It's a little ugly, but that's what it's supposed to look like. So Romeo climbs the wall and leaps down within it. And then again, square brackets, Capulet property with regular quote marks, and this happens to be a page number. This happens to be a page number, 36. Benvolio's line's a little more, I don't know if traditional is the right word, but the right way to cite this dramatic play. His line, triple quote marks, Romeo, my cousin, Romeo, Romeo. And again, you could talk about the repeated name calling as something like, I've lost something, which is to say you were supposed to have something. Again, extrapolate on that about how Benvolio is supposed to have an eye, keep an eye on his favorite cousin. Okay, a couple of nods of what you'll see next on subsequent slides, and it's going to get into Romeo hiding in the dark and Juliet on the balcony confessing her love to the night stars, as it were. Let's take a look. So up here Romeo is saying beautiful things about her. Her eyes in heaven, would thou airy regions stream so bright. In other words, her eyes in heaven are stars. And again, he's looking up to her. And then she finally makes a noise out loud. She's probably talking to herself, so to speak, on the balcony. Or he's getting closer to her. And then he hears that she speaks. And then this is the famous line, oh, Romeo, why are you Romeo Montague? And then she literally says, deny thy father. In other words, she's acknowledging she's not supposed to like, or in this case, love a Montague. And then she's saying if he won't, she is asking that he swears his love to her, and she will reject her name. In other words, she's definitely acknowledging that he's a Montague and that this love maybe shouldn't be. She seems to know that. Romeo knows he's trespassing. Shall I hear more? Shall I speak at this? He knows he's in a place he shouldn't be. So that's terrific, right? That's good evidence that he's taking action that propels him to a disastrous conclusion, right? That's your essay prompt. Who's to blame? Okay, so I'll do a couple more quotes for you guys. Juliet says, famously, deny thy father and refuse thy name, or if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love. It's so romantic. We get into Act 2, Scene 1. That's a little bit of a typo there, guys. Act 2, Scene 1, there should not be the extra 2. There's no Scene 12. 36 and 37. Please be careful of that. Romeo says, excuse me, shall I hear more, comma, fanboys, or shall I speak at this? And again, the question marks inside of the quote marks. And again, the typo, guys, I apologize. This is, oh, I see what I did. So this is Act 2, Scene 2. And again, this is Act 2, Scene 2. I didn't delete the 1. So there's mistakes. No one's perfect, but again, the editing process. All right, guys, I'm going to keep going. There's a handful of more pages to go through. You need 3 more quotes, and please use the slides and or video to help you find them, that video that I'm making right now, okay? There'll be a link in Canvas and other places. All right, here we go. Juliet knows Romeo should not be here. This is where she asks, how did you get here? Tell me, and why? The orchard walls are high, and this place is death, considering who you are. If any of my kinsmen find thee here. Not to mention he's, it's late at night and he's trespassing. So he knows he shouldn't be there, but here Juliet is saying you should leave. And so maybe the fact that Romeo rejects this, or that Juliet shouldn't even be talking to him, one of them is to blame based on these lines. Here's another good page. On page 40, of course, we're referring to the lines at the very top here. If thou dost love, pronounce it faithfully. In other words, she's asking for his love. So you get this little theme in the next couple of notes here that she's sort of setting the task. And then, of course, what would Romeo say? Lady, by yonder blessed moon, I swear. Okay, so she's asking or setting the task. He's immediately responding, rejecting any of the danger. He shouldn't be there. She's a Capulet. He's a Montague. So maybe acting without thought or without any understanding of the choices they make, right? They will have consequences. Then Romeo gets really wild down here. And Romeo says, oh, wilt thou leave me so unsatisfied? Because she just said goodnight. And he says, the exchange of thy love's faithful vow. And that's Shakespearean for I will give you my love in faith forever if you will give me your love in faith forever. And he's asking her to marry him. And then she immediately responds. So Romeo says this, so he proposes. So here he is setting the task. And then she says, I gave thee mine before thou didst request it. In other words, again, this idea of acting without considering the consequences of their choices. So if you want to blame Romeo and Juliet, there's plenty of fruit on the tree, so to speak, in Act 2. And here we are in Act 2, Scene 2. So again, line 98. She's setting a task. Do you love me? Pronounce it faithfully. He responds and says immediately. And maybe there's this common theme of asking these things and doing these things without thought. He asks her to marry him. She says yes immediately. Okay, let's jump ahead with some notes all over the page for you. We already did those lines. I'll leave that. Remember, you can pause the screen and take a quick note of these lines. All right, next page. 41. So we got some good lines. Most notably is where you begin to be able to blame the nurse or lay the fault of whose responsibility is paramount in this disastrous play, this tragedy. And the nurse loses track, kind of like Benvolio, loses track of Juliet. So she's out on the balcony. Where the heck is the nurse, right? Isn't the nurse supposed to be taking care of 13-year-old Juliet, right? Who's not quite 14. And then here we go with line 151. Juliet sets another task. If your purpose is marriage, send me word tomorrow by one that I will procure. In other words, I will send someone to you tomorrow. We're going to go over a timeline at the end of this video. Hopefully I have time. Okay, so she sets the task. All right, some more stuff here. There's the notes in case you want to pause the video. Here's a good line. She again sets another task. What o'clock shall I send to thee? And she's going to send the nurse. FYI, that's coming up in a subsequent slide. By the hour of 9 a.m. So there's no time for either child to go to bed, dare I say. Oh, these rash accents. And then towards the bottom here, Sleep dwell upon thine eyes. He's wishing her good night. Peace in thy breast. Would I were sleep and peace so sweet to rest. If he could obviously join her in her dreams. He says, I will go to my ghostly father's cell. And your ghostly father here is the pastor or the priest, or in this case, they call him Friar. And so his name is Friar Lawrence, L-A-U. Pardon my scribbles there, L-A-U. So Romeo is able to find someone, all right? And then this is where it gets crazy. So this is two kids acting, but now we're going to involve an adult, right? So the nurse is going to get involved, and of course, the friar's going to get involved. So Romeo says, you guys will see this in the movie today. It's kind of exciting. In Act 2, Scene 3, Romeo runs straight to the friar, and he, what early tongue. So this is the rising of the sun, and then it's not like children to wake up so early, apparently even in the 1500s, 16th century. And here Romeo says, on the fair daughter of rich Capulet, by holy marriage, when and where and how we met, we wooed, made exchange of vow, I'll tell thee as we pass, but this I pray, marry us today. So he asks the friar to marry him. And of course, the friar, a man of God, a wise person, a teacher, teachers are very wise. He, of course, says yes. So these are the famous lines where he says, in one respect, I'll thy assistant. I'll thy helper. I will be thy helper. For this alliance may so happy prove to turn your household's rancor. Here you can see the bitterness, the hatred, the feud, to pure love. In other words, the friar's ego steps in a little bit. I'll help you because I think I can solve the feud, right? Love conquers hate is his argument. Let's find out at the end of the play if he's right. Moving right along, we got just a couple minutes left in the video. Here's a good word for you. It's foreshadowing. Tybalt sends a letter to the Montague house. And again, it's a challenge, a request for a duel. And then Mercutio says he's already dead. And that's because Tybalt is a fantastic fighter. He's more than the Prince of Cats, I can tell you. He's a courageous captain of compliments. He fights as you sing. So he is, Tybalt is challenging Romeo for crashing the party. And Mercutio is saying he's already dead. And the Mercutio warning is really interesting because Benvolio doesn't seem to accept it. So you could say the Mercutio lines, and then Benvolio doesn't do his best to keep Romeo out of harm. So there's the notes if you guys want to check them. Now this is wild. The nurse, at the request of her responsibility, the Juliet, 13, not quite 14-year-old Juliet, goes and seeks out Romeo during the day, again, by the hour of 9. So this is fascinating. So now the nurse is involved where she finds him finds Romeo to find out if he has figured out how to marry Juliet. It's pretty hard to lay the blame on the nurse, but she's going to accept the message. So as you read these lines, whoops, oh boy. Wrong way. Sorry, guys. As you read these lines, what she bid me say, and Romeo says, commend me to thy lady and mistress, I protest unto thee. And he basically says, I am in love, and she will take it as a gentlemanlike offer, and then here's the plan. So the nurse is going to deliver the message, head to Friar Lawrence's cell for confession, where she will be shrived and married. Here is for thy pain, so he even offers to pay her. No way the friar actually does this. There's plenty of lines here where Juliet actually gets to the cell, but here's where the friar famously says, come, we will make short work till Holy Church incorporate 2 into 1. So he's saying, let's get married. All right, 2 things to go, last 2 seconds in the video. Here, out of order, right, page 53. The other one was page 54. The nurse delivers the message, and then a friar prays for a blessing on their marriage. So have you got leave to go to Shrift today? I have. Then hie you hence, right? Okay, so there's that. And then let me show you one more slide. Sort of appreciate the tightness of time. You have the brawl on the streets. Romeo is wishing for Rosaline. Paris asks Capulet to marry. Tybalt is angry and he sees Romeo at the party. This is the party. Romeo visits Juliet, the balcony scene where they decide to get married. Romeo asks the friar to marry them. Tybalt challenges